He's here, he's finally, Jesus, after a good long while, he's finally here. The SKARNER rework is in the stages of being fully revealed. I believe at this point we still don't have all of his updated splash art. I think Battlecast is still missing. But we have the ability reveal. Skin Spotlights is putting up the PBE content, so fuck it. Let's have a look at them. Let's have a look at our former Crystal Scorpion, now the prime fat fuck of League of Legends, just hanging out, doing his thing on the Rift. Show me what he looks like and what his abilities are. Enemies with 3 stacks of Quaking take max HP. Okay, so yeah, I guess that makes sense. Better than Crystal Towers. I do want to see him more in motion. He rips a rocket off the ground, uses it in empires next 3 attacks. Bonus range, blah, blah. Attack slams the rock into the... Okay, so next 3 attacks with bonus damage range and attack speed. The 3rd attack slams the rock into the target, slowing and dealing significant bonus damage. Ending the effect, recast to throw the rock as a projectile, dealing the same damage and slow ending the effect. Right, so it's the thing you pull out the rock, smack twice, and then throw it when someone runs away from you. I do like that. I do like that they're using his tails more actively in his animation here. Than they were with old SKARNER. Old SKARNER pretty much just used it for his ult, right? So having him like use it to carry stuff around with, I think, is effective. Okay, so like AoE slow and he gets a shield. That's familiar. And certainly certainly he's not he doesn't seem complicated. Charges forwards, ignores terrain, grabs the first enemy champion, a large monster. He may then carry them a short way, damaging and stunning them if they collide with terrain. The enemy can see the indicator much like when... Okay, so that's if you can get on the other side of an enemy. Like, if there's a skirmish happening down here and people are running away here, and you grab them with SKARNER and push them... Like, you can get some fucking plays out of that shit. Okay. Interesting. Because that's, like, almost his old ult, right? Like, a little bit like he can grab enemies and move them around. But yeah, that's like a Scion ult that goes through walls. And then Impale, which now can hit up to 3 targets because of the 3 tails. I expect that's why they gave him the 3 tails, right? Like, that'll be the reason why. Because they wanted to make Impale some kind of a multi-target. In order to make it, like, bigger. Because, like, Impale was like... Yeah, you hit it on someone and they're probably dead, but you can only ever... Like, it's an ult that can, at most, affect 1 enemy, right? Like, it always felt kind of weak. So being able to grab 3 people... Like, if you can get that on 3 squishies, like, that's a team fight right there, right? Like, so that's... Big impact moment now. Can't cast QE or flash during the ult. You can pull enemies... You can pull enemies over walls? What do you mean over walls? How? Like, if you somehow manage to smack an Explodies bloom thing? Oh, you can carry the Scuttler as well. There's some troll play potential in that. Okay, I'm not really... I wish they'd zoom in a little bit so I can see his animation better. But he does seem to have, like, a fairly low-key walking animation. Like, very sort of, like, not a lot of bounce, not a lot of anything going on. He just kind of glides across the ground very smoothly. With his walk animation. But he does look like kind of a nightmare to encounter in a one-on-one. Yeah, like, I think it's, like, reasonably low-key in terms of what his animation does. Like, he really doesn't move any more than he absolutely has to for anything. And I think that works from the perspective of him being a Scorpion, like, that he's not super animated until it's time to strike, and then he does a very sudden motion, like, then snap, right? But like the fact that he's like pretty low key, using very snappy motions, that feels quite right for a Scorpion. I want to get to see him in slow motion. Like I want to get to see him in animation viewer so I can really check out, because I would imagine there's some cool animation going on with the tails that you just can't fucking see in the middle of a team fight like this. I'm still on his character design being a little bit too low key for my tastes. Like I think they've ramped up a little bit on the decorations on him. That like there's more painted decorations on him. There's a little bit more color going on. I still feel like he's kind of boring in terms of like it's a very placid teal that he's got going on, like teal gray. There just isn't a lot of vibrancy to him, which I think is a little bit of a pity. Like because I think that's fine for like his base color as a Scorpion, but then on top of that, because he's the leader of the Yuntal, and he's like one of the spiritual leaders of Ishtal, I would have liked to have a little bit more spectacularity, right, in the way that he's put together, to make him stand out a little bit more. I guess the idea they're going for is that he's supposed to feel like he's like part of the environment, like he's a natural part of the Ishtali jungle or whatever, which, okay, I suppose. But he does, like, especially around a bunch of other champions.
What did I just... Oh, disgusting.
He does look a little bit... low-key. He does look a little bit downplayed. Like, what I like is... you have this paint on him, like, all these, like, figures and structures and things that are, like, painted on him as decoration. But they're also, like, it's these fairly placid browns and, like, some blues and teals. Like, it's... maybe a little bit of gold, like maybe a little bit of something that would pop a little bit against like the sort of fairly plastic, because he's a cool character design. I like the idea of three tails, because that makes him spectacular. That makes him something special rather than just a Scorpion. But I do feel like he's missing a little bit of pop, like a little bit of something, to like make him exciting rather than just, you know, a big scary Scorpion. Yeah. Crab Rave, yes. Oh, they're doing the spider hiding itself in sand. That's pretty good.
Get back.
Alright, here are his combos, I guess. But yeah, like, E as a means to get in range for an R seems about ideal, right? Like, along with Flash, to pull someone out of position. Okay, I'm getting a slightly better look at his animation here. Like, I like the bigger swipe, because, like, SKARNER in his old model, when he swiped with his claws, it was like a very flat motion, right? Like, it was very much like he just swiped his claw from, like, his elbow. And what I like here is that, looking at the way, like, this is also when his auto attack is empowered, right? But here we get, like, you can see how, like, he winds the whole body back, winds up the claw, and then it's like kerslamo and snap, right? So, like, there's much more, like, he's twisting his whole body into it, which I think is a good move. Like, I think that's a good way to make his auto attacks feel more meaningful. Presumably, the unempowered auto attacks will be a little bit less spectacular than that, but I like that. Oh, yeah, there's definitely some... you can see it there on the tails, like a little bit of that squash and stretch going on. And then the rock despawns from the model, spawns as an object, as a projectile, and kerblamo. And here again, I'm glad to see that the animators are like... right, you can see how like he winds up, but the whole body gets the swing into it, and then zoom! Right, like a proper big throwing motion, rather than just like sort of lurching the tails forward, that we get this circular swinging sling motion almost with the way that he throws the rock. I like that. That's pretty cool. And like, The leg animation, I think, is also charming, especially when he's carrying someone in his tail. Like the little tippy toe thing he's doing. Okay. So, that's thus far for the abilities, which, you know, not really my special point of interest, but then we get to the splash art. And here's the thing, right? In the splash art, he's like fucking Malphite size now. Which is a big change for our Crystal Scorpion guy. Like, he was always like the size of a sedan, right? He was always like the size of a car. But now they've really like buffed him up to the point like this boy could wrestle Malphite to the ground and then longingly stare into his eyes and then share a tender moment when they're faced near each other, and then, you know, like that kind of thing. That can happen now. Go wild with that one, fanfic writers. But also in the splash art, like, I feel like the colors work better. On the Rift, he's very teal, right? Like, he's very greenish in his shell. Here, in the splash art, he's much more gray, right? Like, that's a much more sort of dark gray neutral. And against that dark gray, like, the colors that are painted on him stand out much, much stronger, much more powerfully. Like, there's much better contrast there. And I'm a little disappointed that we don't get that in-game, because in-game I feel like the colors blend way too much, where here there's like stronger fields of contrast. And that's also like, as part of his character design, I quite like that, that he's like this huge guardian deity, the founder of the Yuntal, like the protector of Ishtal, kind of like kaiju creature, and then the way that he's marked out as being something other than a thoughtless monstrosity, like he's not an unthinking monster that just attacks things. Well, people have painted on him, right? Like, this is not natural markings that are in his shell. This is painting. This is like, these are markings that have been painted onto him by his worshippers, by like the people of Ishtal have painted these things on to mark him out as a ceremonial figure of some kind. And like that, as a piece of world building, as a piece of character design, to sort of show that he has this role of like intellectual, spiritual leader of a people, I think that's really, really strong. The same thing with like the rope, because like I question how the hell did they get enough metal together to make fucking rings like that to put around his arm? Like the braided ropes, like these like braided in the style of like some indigenous people used to build braided bridges that was sort of braided in a style that seems reminiscent of that. Like that, like this very man-made thing that has like been wrapped around him. I think that's fucking cool, and I really wish they'd pushed harder with that. I really wish they'd done more to make him decorated in that way, like little flags or like whatever, like just little trinkets and stuff that people would have attached to him as like marks of honor, like a gold ring around one of his mandibles or whatever, like anything like that that would pop against that very sort of dour, downplayed shell. Because like the basic idea here is, I think, really good, like really solid. And like that's the thing, I like that they've sort of flattened him out, like made him a little bit more crustacean-like, a little bit more crab-like in that way, like giving him a little bit more of that flat, sturdy figure. Because again, that also sort of, in terms of like, he's the protector of Ishtal. He's like he is like a creature of the land. In that sense, that works way better than a crystal scorpion, which is always going to look like a magic construct, right? Like, it's going to look like a golem of some kind. That's one weakness of Skarner, is that, like, he used to be from the crystal scar, back when that existed. Then they made him from Shurima, and it's like, yeah, crystal scorpion, deserts, I guess, kind of, sort of, but he really didn't look connected to Shurima visually in any way. Skarner now looks way more visually connected to Ishtal. Even if, again, I wish the cultural markers, I wish these things had been emphasized way more as part of his character design, like, because that to me is like the strongest part of what we're doing with him. So yeah, I like the scale. Like, I like that he is huge. Now, again, Skarner used to be just kind of a scorpion, what was made out of crystal. Like, he used to look like a mob, like any random NPC enemy from like a World of Warcraft game, right? Like, he used to look kind of unremarkable for the most part. Now, like, both with the scale, but also just with the triple tails, like, it makes him more spectacular. It makes him look more important and interesting. It makes him look like more than just a monster character, right? Which, again, even more of that painting and, like, markings and shit, that would have pushed that even harder, and I would have liked that. But okay, other splash arts, I can't see any fucking difference, really. I'd have to compare them directly, and I haven't loaded it up, but Guardian of the Sands looks like it's mostly the same, except with 3 tails now. At least in the splash art, we'll see what it looks like when the models show up on PBE. Much the same with Cosmic. It's really just looks like they gave him the 3 tails. Like, the splash arts don't seem to have been radically changed, and the designs don't really seem to have been radically changed from what they were. But Earthrune, I'm a little sad about Earthrune. I'm a little... Because, like, Earthrune Skarner used to be really like a golem scorpion. Like, essentially, like, what if Blue Buff was a scorpion? That used to be Earthrune Skarner. Like, he has, like, this very sort of rocky, crystalline thing, like, where his joints and his sinew was all made of, like, plant vines and shit like that. I really liked Earthrune Skarner, the way that he was. I thought that was one of his best skins. I'm a little less interested in this. I gotta admit, like, I can still see, like, he's got tree roots or whatever for his, like, he's now like it's like he's got tree roots for his sinew now, and triple tails and whatever, but, like, the more clearly artificial constructed thing of, like, he has this gold decoration on him and shit, like no, like, make him actually like a fucking proper made of nature rock golem scorpion thing instead. Like, this, I feel like, that just makes him too much like any other. Like, that feels too basic for me, like, the gold decorations on him. It would have been much more interesting to explore, like, more natural shapes rather than this constructed. Like, leave that for a robot skin for him, like Battlecast, for example, which we don't have. And this would be Sand Scourge. And this... So Sand Scourge is technically part of the High Noon universe. And I'm like, I don't think they went hard enough with that there for High Noon. Like, High Noon is all about, like, the demons of hell have all escaped into the Old West, and, like, you have, like, all these supernatural powers that are angels hiding in caverns, and, like all this weird supernatural shit going on. Skarner looks a little bit too normal for High Noon, I think. Again, because, like, he has these elements on him that are clearly constructed, right? Like, he has the stingers on his scorpion tails. He has the furnaces inside of his claws for whatever reason. That's constructed, right? Like, that's something built that someone built that out of metal. Someone decorated this metal shell thing he's got around his neck. But then the rest of him is just Zerg, like a very basic sort of alien scorpion monster thing going on, where I'm like, okay, but then, like, make him a fucking smoke golem with fire bellowing out of his, or give him like smokestacks coming out of his back, or something. Like, something else has kind of got to give, because here he just kind of looks like a normal scorpion that got dressed up a little bit in a little bit of High Noon cosplay gear, but without... He doesn't really feel like he's part of this, like, demonic hell world kind of thing. Where, like, it should have been either that or else take away all this man-made nonsense. Like, take away all this constructed nonsense and go fully in. This is, like, what an animal looks like in the High Noon universe. He's a normal scorpion who's been transformed by the powers of hell, and then instead of putting all this metal shit on him, like, just give him real big fucked up demon claws and, like, eyes all over his carapace. Like, eyes everywhere in places that they shouldn't be. Like, make him a horror monster, right? Like, make him like something terrible and like sort of incomprehensible and weird. And lean into the idea he's a mutant scorpion with 3 tails. It has like all this weird shit on him. This just looks way too clean and too much like he's wearing a vest, I guess. Like, some kind of, like, he's... Yeah, I don't know. I really don't dig this as part of the High Noon universe very much, unfortunately. And that was basically it, wasn't it? Yeah, that's pretty much all we have for Skarner at this point. Let me see if his basic attack should be showing up here. Oh, no. Okay, so he does the huge wind-up even with unempowered auto attacks. And again, you can see the snappiness that, like, he's animated with, like, because he has the slow wind up. And then fairly, like, 3 frames at 60 frames per second, snap forward, snap, right? And then we linger on that for a second, and then he pulls back. And that looks very effective. Like, it's halfway between a punch and a pinch, right? Like, he winds back like he's about to throw a haymaker, and then he, like, snaps in and does a little bit of a scythe motion to sort of indicate that he's grabbing on and, like, tearing with his claws. And I think that works pretty well. Like, that's... Yeah, I am pleased with what I'm seeing out of his animation. Because, like, a character who was otherwise visually that bland, like, I feel like there's room in the visual budget for him to, like, go with some real big motions. Like, some real wild animation for him when it's time for him to do something big. Let me see if I can't get a look at the R. It's like, what's the specific animation that triggers... Like, he winds back, he puts all 3 scorpion tails up into 1 point, and then, like, the effect runs forward to give an indication of the impact area, and then winds back the tails. And then the enemies just kind of snap to the tails, and then they're down. Okay. Yeah, okay, I can kind of see that. Like, that's... I was hoping for something a little bit cooler. A lot of the animation for Impale to make that look good seems to have been handled by the VFX here more than the character animation as such, by the looks of it. Which I guess makes sense, like, because I don't know, like, when you have 3 targets, I don't know how you would target each individual tail to go to one individual champion without introducing all kinds of weird animation edge cases, where something would go out of whack and then, like, his tail is breaking the model or whatever. I guess that makes sense to sort of handle that much more in the VFX, because it's about, like, attaching hitboxes to hitboxes and shit. But his tail does seem to, like, lengthen out of its segments and, like, get this blood-red pulse on it, which I think is a cool visual effect also. Okay. I'm not mad about the SKARNER update. I think it's okay. Like, I think this is pretty darn decent. It integrates him into the world. I'm still... SKARNER used to have this lore that really integrated him into Piltover and Zaun, right? Like, that Piltover and Zaun got the Hex Crystals in the first place by stealing them from the bodies of SKARNER's sleeping people. Like, literally, like, this golden city of science is built on, like, literally, like, mining the bodies of an indigenous people and using their bodies for fuel to, like, fuel the rise of their empire. It's like... That is pretty powerful commentary. That's pretty strong. That's something that has something interesting and meaningful to say, and I guess that's why we couldn't do that. We couldn't have something that, like, could act as a powerful anti-colonial metaphor in the lore. We couldn't have that. We couldn't have an explicit condemnation of Piltover's wealth and power and prestige in the lore like that, because... Oh no, people have to reckon with the idea that maybe Piltover could be the bad guys? Aw, but what if they could be the good guys, though? What if, like, just because they're rich and they oppress Zaun and so many people, and, like, but that's, like, what if they had good intentions and stuff? We don't want to feel bad about, like, that feels cowardly. Narratively cowardly. I guess they just didn't want to deal with it. I guess they just didn't want to deal with the problem of the Brackern as this, like, moral complication to every character who uses hex tech, right? Every character who uses really powerful hex tech would have to have one of the Brackern crystals because they're the most powerful ones. And you have to deal with that question of, like, shit, they're using soul-powered magic here. They're literally using the soul as the bodies of a conquered people to power their technology. That's a powerful moral quandary for them to have to reckon with. I guess we just don't want to deal with it. I guess we just don't want to engage with our own narrative on that level. That's too complicated and interesting. He's from an Ishtal. He's a guardian god of Ishtal. Blah, 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 Yuntal. Blah, blah. Like, square him away from these complicated, thorny moral questions so that we don't have to deal with it. Which, like, yeah, okay, sure. I mean, if you don't want to think hard or deep about your own lore, fair enough, I guess. Like it just I just cannot but see that as Riot's corporate management coming down and saying, "Ooh, that sounds like something where that could be problematic, or someone could criticize us for having that in our game. We don't want to have that in our game. Ooh, we're scared of it." And that's like because I liked that. I thought that was a really cool part of who Skarner was. That he was like so intimately connected to hextech crystals that he problematized like the whole concept of like science being able to like revolutionarily create these amazing new energy sources out of nothing. But okay, yeah, sure. I guess it conflicts with the lore in Arcane, I guess, and that's supposed to be the basis of all of the lore going forward. So I guess, oh well, that is what it is. And I think that's a reaction to Skarner, pretty much. Yeah. Maybe I'll do another couple of these when we can see the skins in action on the models and we get to see Battlecast Skarner, what he looks like. I'll do another reaction video for that, I suppose. Bye.